Bum-ba-da-dum. Howdy, y'all. Banjo Ben here. We're going to work on improvisation today, particularly with fiddle tunes with something called target notes. I'm going to play something for you. Red Hair Boy is what it is. Probably in a way you've never heard it before. Listen to it. See if you can figure out what I'm doing, and then we'll talk about it afterward. Pick up what I did? In the first A part and the first B part, I played what are called the target notes. That's the basic melody distilled way down, like less than what the melody is whenever you learn it on fiddle, okay? And then the second A part and B part, I connected those target notes using some scale notes, and it got to be where it sounded more like what you're used to hearing as Red Hair Boy. Why are we doing this? Because we are tied to tab too much. Now, I've talked about this a lot, but this lesson is kind of a fresh perspective on that. We're tied to tab too much. I just came off of a cabin camp that I taught in Athens, Georgia, and I always come back from those so inspired because I spend all weekend with my students, and I hear about their problems and the barriers in their learning path. And one thing I heard a lot was, I get to a jam and I've got all these solos memorized from these great arrangements out there, and then I'm under pressure or it's going too fast and I bomb halfway through it and then I'm lost and I can't ever get back on track. I just want to say, of course you can't. Of course you can't. Nobody, well, I can't say nobody. Very few people in this world have the ability to learn a bunch of high-level solos with tab, memorize them, carry them into a high-pressure situation, and pull it off. But second of all, who would want to do that? I mean, it gives you a little bit of satisfaction in the moment. But why would you want to do that? You want to be able to just play fiddle tunes and improvise even on songs that you've just heard, right? So we don't want to be tied to this tab. Now, I know that I teach with tab. But as I've said for many years, tab is a great tool to communicate, but it can't be a crutch. You can't be tied to it and be jamming and performing with your brain connected to some tab that you're trying to recreate. There's just too many opportunities to mess up. And ultimately, it's not really playing. It is playing, but it's not the kind of playing that I think you're after, which is to be able to play from the heart, be able to play with your ears. And that's what this lesson is all about today. We're just going to use Red Hair Boy as the fodder to teach that. Now, if you are watching on YouTube or Facebook, somewhere like that, come over to the website, banjobenclark.com. You'll see a link around here somewhere. You can join as a Gold Pit member and get access to hundreds of lessons with all kinds of downloadable resources for all kinds of instruments. So you want to do that. You can go to joinbanjoben.com to learn more about that as well. With that being said, let's look at Red Hair Boy, talk about what target notes are and how they can help you improvise, even on the spot, songs that you play in jams and otherwise. Let's start with what I think is one of the biggest mistakes as guitar players and wannabe improvisers that we can make, and that is to try to learn a song before you know what it sounds like. Maybe you've heard it a time or two in the past and something's caught your ear and you've listened to a record. You're like, oh yeah, that's a great fiddle tune. I want to learn that. Then what do? You immediately go and you search for tab for that. And you might land on a website like mine where I have hundreds of tabs teaching you how to play a solo to that. That's all great. We talked about tab being a great communication tool. The problem is that you can dive into that song using tab only and never really have that melody connect to your heart or to your mind. So years ago, I collaborated with a friend of mine, Paige Garwood, to create a theory course for my site. And he put into words exactly what needed to be said at the very beginning. He says, whenever you're going to learn a song, you need to learn how to sing it first, right? Because if you can sing a song, you can eventually play it. Or I would say it inversely, if you can't sing a song, you're going to have a very, very difficult time playing it because there's something about connecting your voice with a melody that's going to help you learn that song and be able to play it in the moment and create improvisations over that, okay? So can we do that with fiddle tunes? Absolutely. Even though fiddle tunes aren't singing songs, we can sing them. And if we're able to hum a melody to a fiddle tune without any accompaniment and without there being any recording going, then we can have confidence that we know it. Now, here's the deal. With fiddle tunes, they're often moving really fast, right? You think about a song like Blackberry Blossom. That'd be kind of hard to sing when, but you could scat it, and some people are better than others. But what we find is that there's a lot of notes going on, and that can be the crippling thing whenever we go to take a solo, because it's this barrage of eighth notes that are just coming at you. And we think as guitar players that we have to play every one of those notes or some pattern of those notes in order to play that solo, when that's not really the case. In most every fiddle tune, and there's variance in there, but in most every fiddle tune, we can boil that down to what we could call target notes, which are just the main melody movements in the song. Because most fiddle tunes are headed in a direction, up or down. Sometimes they'll have big interval jumps, like in the B part of Blackberry Blossom. You hear this. Okay, that's very specific to Blackberry Blossom. There's others that do that. But in general, the melody is going up or down and kind of using scales to do that. So what I think is most helpful to do when we learn how to sing these songs, putting them in our heads and in our hearts, is to just boil those melodies down a little bit and get the general concept of the melody, what I would call target notes. So let's just start with Blackberry Blossom, even though we're going to end up on Red Hair Boy. Again, if you were to play it like out of a fiddle fake book, it would sound like this. Like that, okay? Can we simplify that and sing it? Absolutely. Dum ba dum bum ba dum bum bum ba dum bum 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 ba dum bum ba dum bum 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 bum. Okay? Can you do that with Blackberry Blossom? You can even try pausing the video right now and see if you can do that. Whenever we hum those target notes, we're not going to hum the same thing, you and I, but we're going to get pretty close to that distilled down melody. Okay, so before we can learn how to improvise over a fiddle tune, I think we need to be able to do that. We need to be able to whistle it or hum some version of that song that's getting at those core melody notes, that's moving in the same direction. Once we do that, the next step to really knowing a song to be able to play it is to be able to put it on our guitar neck. Okay, we talked a lot about this, we always do at cabin camps, like connecting the notes in our mind and things that we can sing to our guitar fretboard. Now, it's not that difficult. It's not as difficult as many might think, because we're generally operating out of a major scale, right? We're generally operating out of a major scale. So here's my pitch for you need to learn your scales. Now, I'm not a big jazz guy that preaches knowing all your scales all over the neck, but there are some scales that we need to be able to learn and know and recall. One of those big ones is just to know our major scale from our lowest open string up to the top, right? Like a G major scale. And back down. Okay, and I have scale study on the website that you can learn. Now, why do we need to know that? Because our fiddle tunes are generally going to be choosing from those scale notes. Fiddle tunes, to be musical, they're not just picking random chromatic notes here and there. There are outliers, right? Like in Blackberry Blossom, we go to that B7 chord in the B part, and that's outside of the G major scale. But okay, we'll deal with those as we get there. But most fiddle tunes are going to be following that major scale of the key that it's in. So I think it's important to be able to know that. Now, once we have that major scale under our fingers, and we know that it's, there's some spots on our fretboard that are going to be used more than others. That's what scales help us see. Then we can begin to find those target notes. So again, take in Blackberry Blossom. Dun 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 dun, boom 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 boom. Can I find that? Can you do that? Can you press pause on your device and see if you can take, it doesn't have to be Blackberry Blossom, but see if you can take another fiddle tune that you can hum, just the basic target notes of and see if you can find it on your guitar. If you're going to do it in the key of D, then you need to know your D major scale. Let's try one of those. Just as a little case study, let's try Whiskey Before Breakfast. Here's the busy melody. Okay, that'd be hard to sing, but are there target notes that we could hum to get at that melody? Dun dun dun, bum bum bum, bum 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 bum, bum bum bum, ba da dun dun, bum ba dum dun 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 dun. That's Whiskey Before Breakfast. Can we play that? See how that works? I'm telling you, if you can hum the target notes to a fiddle tune, and then you can find those notes on your guitar, you are well on your way to being able to just play that fiddle tune and begin to improvise over it, which we'll get into, like ways to do that. But this is key. If you're starting with the tab, learning complex arrangements that you don't know what they really say or what they're really trying to communicate, you just know where those numbers are, and you're trying to carry that into performance scenario, it's not going to work. I'm just telling you, it's not going to work. I've said this in many different ways over the years, but I just want to be more direct with you here because I see that it's such a problem as I'm teaching students, and I was tempted to do it as well. Okay, so let's go back to Red Hair Boy. If you've got a capo, let's go up capo 2 because it's generally played in A. Got my Elliott Elite capo here, highly recommend. Now, Red Hair Boy is, out of this G position, so we're still going to refer to some G chords and such. So that's a G position, even though it's technically an A chord because we're capo. Okay. It does have a chord in the song that's not typically in the key of G. Right? It's got that F, that dominant seventh. Right? So right here. Okay, that's one thing that makes Red Hair Boy sound so cool. So we need to think about that whenever we get to that chord, we could borrow from our F scale. So that's a little different from our G scale. There's only a couple notes difference. It's not that big a deal. But can we, right now, capoed up, hum through the target notes to Red Hair Boy and begin to find them on our guitar, and then we'll move over to the tab and I'll confirm where we're at. And again, your target notes may be a little different than mine. That's okay. You may say, well, I don't know how to find the target notes. Then you don't know the song. Then you need to go listen to the fiddle tune in as many different environments as you can. Go pull up 8 or 10 different recordings of the fiddle tune and listen through it to where you know where that melody goes. And it's good to find fiddle, or arrangements that is not just full of like jam band type stuff, but go actually listen to various albums where they're presenting the melody. That's just important. And get that in your mind, and then you'll be able to hum it. But let me give you a very basic version of it, see if we can boil it down. Sound like this. This is the A part. Okay, so that's the straight ahead melody, but that's not what I would call the target notes because that's a lot of stuff going on there and it's kind of complex. And that's the nature of these fiddle tunes, is that even at their most basic melodic form, they're still complex. So if I was wanting to boil that down, it would be something like this. Dun, 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 bum, 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 bum. Now the key is, can I find that on my instrument? Okay, something like that. And if you can accomplish that on a fiddle tune, even just taking Red Hair Boy, figure that out. You can even rewind what I just did. Then you're ready to move on to the next step. Because what we're going to do in the next video is we're going to take those target notes and we're going to learn how to grow those into solos using scales and other things. But if you're not there with your ear, if you're not there yet, then you need more practice. You need more reps. Take a very basic fiddle tune. Okay, you can take Old Joe Clark. The reason why that's one of the first ones we learn is because the basic melody is essentially already distilled down. Okay? Now you can get busier with it. All right, you can start throwing all that stuff in, but just the basic melody. And can we find that by ear? And then, of course, going into the B part. And if you can do that, if you can get there, then we're ready to move on. Just join me on the next video segment. And if you're watching this on YouTube or Facebook, I would love to have you come on board for the rest of this lesson where we are going to push into our ears, learn how to improvise over these target notes of fiddle tunes so that you can gain freedom, get away from the doggone tab as a crutch, okay? Join banjoband.com. You Gold Pick members, next video.